Now let me say something about the right of settlement. Under Article 6, the administration of Palestine, i.e. the government of Palestine, was supposed to encourage the settlement of the land by the settlement by Jews on the land. Now, the state of Israel succeeded the government of Palestine, which was controlled by the British government during the Mandate period, and they are obliged to encourage settlement, not to freeze settlement. To freeze settlement is to deny the Jews their rights of settling the land. It is also contrary not only to the right in the Mandate, it's also contrary to the Jewish right of return, which is part of the law of return that was passed by the Knesset in 1950, I believe July 1950, and the government has no right to freeze settlement. Furthermore, the United States has no right to interfere in this matter. The government is supposed to encourage the settlement. The government does not mean the United States government. It means the government of Israel.
Question about the United States government. The United States is not a member of the League of Nations that adopted the mandate. So why is the U.S. obligated to honor the mandate?
This question can be answered very easily, because even though the United States did not ratify the Treaty of Versailles and did not join the League of Nations, nevertheless it concluded a treaty with Britain on December 3, 1924, in which they recognized the mandate and incorporated the mandate word for word, comma for comma, in the terms of the treaty. And this included Article 6 of the mandate that I already mentioned, that said that the administration of Palestine had to encourage settlement, Jewish settlement, because the reason for that was very simple. The Jewish state could not be established unless you allowed Jewish immigration and Jewish settlement in the land of Israel. If there was no immigration and no settlement, there couldn't have been any Jewish state, which was the purpose of the mandate. And the United States accepted this when they concluded a treaty with Great Britain that was proclaimed by President Calvin Coolidge in December 1925. They accepted all the terms of the mandate, and under the American legal system, a treaty that is ratified and proclaimed becomes the supreme law of the land, and therefore the right of Jewish settlement was recognized in American law. And this right, in my humble opinion, still remains embedded in American law, even though the treaty that was signed between Britain and France no longer exists, because it terminated together with the mandate. Once the mandate terminated, so did the treaty. Incidentally, the United States, in signing this treaty, received a number of rights. They didn't sign it for nothing. They received rights to establish schools and charitable institutions and commercial rights and property rights, including the right to look for oil if you want to go deeply into it, so that the United States recognized the mandate for due consideration. They cannot now turn their back. Certainly they've conveniently forgotten this, because the state of Israel, for reasons unknown, does not assert its international legal rights to the land. And this is, it's incredible, because here we have a government of Israel that doesn't even know what its rights are. And that is one of the reasons that I wrote the book, in order to provide a systematic and organized explanation of Israel's legal foundation based on the legal and diplomatic documents that were agreed to after World War I.
November 1947, the UN partitioned
Yes.
Palestine,
Yes.
and Israel agreed to it.
Yes.
But you
Yes.
say that they gave up their rights
Yes.
in doing this, and that
No.
the new borders?
No, Israel did not give up the rights, because when Israel agreed to this, agreed to the partition resolution, it was done because there were hundreds of thousands of homeless Jews in Germany, and they were acting under duress, or as it's said in French, force majeure, and they had so much disappointment and betrayal by the British that they had to establish the Jewish state immediately, whatever the size. But they were acting under duress, and therefore they were going to accept what was offered. It's even incredible that they accepted originally to establish a Jewish state even without Jerusalem. And that's because they needed to get the state established immediately, because at the time it was better to take a half a loaf than to have no loaf at all. And once the war began, the War of Independence began, and the Arabs attacked the fledgling Jewish state, the consent that the Jewish Agency for Palestine gave for the partition resolution was vitiated because the Jewish Agency, speaking through Rabbi Silver, accepted the partition resolution on the condition that the Arabs would also accept it and there would be no war. But when the Arabs went to war, then their consent became null and void. This is a normal consequence of signing any contract. If the other party doesn't abide by its obligations, then that releases the other party from any of its obligations. So that in any case, the UN General Assembly did not have the right to divide the land. The League of Nations never had the power to divide the land. It wasn't within their power. They did not, and neither did Britain, because Article 5 of the mandate prohibited this.
So how did they lob off all of Transjordan with the League of Nations?
Well, under Article 25 of the mandate, Winston Churchill, when he was colonial secretary, inserted an article to allow for the temporary suspension of the articles relating directly to the Jewish national home. In fact, all articles of the mandate related to the Jewish national home, but there were certain articles that said so specifically, of which there was no doubt. So what happened is that in 1921, at the Cairo conference, Churchill, listening to his officials in the colonial office, taking the advice of his officials, which included T.E. Lawrence and John Shuckburgh, as well as the High Commissioner Herbert Samuel, decided to detach Transjordan from the Jewish national home. But the detachment was not supposed to be permanent. It was done on the pretext that the existing local conditions did not permit for the establishment of the Jewish national home in the area east of the Jordan. This was simply a pretext, because the same conditions that existed in eastern Palestine were not that much different from western Palestine in terms of defense and security.